we have had these outside people who've advised before. Obviously, Doge is new. We've never had somebody who's a multi-hundred billionaire before. So there are new aspects to it, but there are definitely echoes if you look back at the history.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. Hey, we're just about at the end of February. Really interesting book. Author came across my desk, The Power and the Money. If that sounds familiar, then you should listen on. His name is Tevi Troy. Tevi, it's your fourth book, I believe, probably more.
Fourth, actually.
Fifth. All right. So you are officially an author.
Yeah, can't hide it.
So the epic clashes between commanders-in-chief and titans of industry. So brings us full circle to now, Trump and Musk, Doge. So far, they've been on the same page. You know, we've never really seen a titan of industry this tightly entwined in an administration to the point where you'd almost call them like part of the kitchen cabinet, Trump's kitchen cabinet. What's your take on it?
Well, it's interesting that the term kitchen cabinet goes way back and also, includes a lot of people who were major businessmen, industrialists. Reagan had his kitchen cabinet. So we have had outside business advisors before. We've also had titans of industry, as I talk about in my book, In the Power of the Money, who go all in with the presidency. I talk about Henry Luce, who is the founder, editor, and publisher of Time magazine. He went all in for Eisenhower in 1952, provided staff for Eisenhower. Musk provides the 20-somethings with backpacks. He used his platform to advance Eisenhower. Musk uses X. He even had his wife become ambassador to Italy. In the Luce administration, Luce in the Eisenhower administration. So we have had these outside people who've advised before. Obviously, Doge is new. We've never had somebody who's a multi-hundred billionaire before. So there are new aspects to it, but there are definitely echoes if you look back at the history.
Yeah. So, but this one's a little different because Musk is there on an operational level, right? Usually these are advisors and they do supply some support, maybe some logistics, some propaganda, right? But this one's really different. It's like Musk was wearing a shirt the other day at a meeting and it said tech support. And basically the government's loaded with zillions of computer systems. None of them work right. None of them talk to each other. Their software is breaking down left and right. It's written in the equivalent of Aramaic, COBOL. That's the equivalent that nobody speaks anymore. COBOL, the joke is when a COBOL programmer who's active with the government checks into a hospital, he doesn't just get standard treatment. He gets an entire team because they got to keep this guy alive, even if it's on life support. So the level of his involvement with the current administration is unparalleled in history, isn't it?
He definitely is very closely involved, and they seem to be doing a lot and kind of breaking some glass along the way. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm a historian. When people say something's unprecedented, I like to look for precedents. But the Doge thing and Musk is something new that I've not seen before in this way.
And so is that the definition of fascism? The marriage of industry and government into one happy package?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, having a business advisor doesn't make it fascist. I mean, I'm much more uncomfortable with, let's say, the FDR administration, which used heavy-handed tactics to get business to do what it wanted. And if you ask me, that was closer to fascism than what we have today. So I'm not comfortable with that term in this context.
Good. Well, me neither. But it is an argument that you do have to take seriously because regardless what your views of the proper function of government is, these corporations wield unheralded power. I mean, a Google, an Apple, even Tesla have more power than their modern predecessors. In how you see the news, how you absorb it, how you ingest information. These companies, Facebook, they all have unheralded power, and you don't want them coming together in some unheralded triumvirate with government, although arguably they did in the past administration.
Well, I mean, look, in 2008 or 2012, the tech companies got together to help get Obama elected. You had all these Facebook staffers embedded in the Obama campaign. Some of them went into the Obama administration. So, yeah, I mean, this stuff has happened before. You've definitely had business leaders who've backed presidential administrations. They provide advice. But, at the end of the day, the president's the decision maker if he's not comfortable with someone. So, for example, Hugh Johnson was a general who was brought in to run that National Recovery Administration under Roosevelt, the guy who acted in those fascistic ways I talked about. And in 1933, he was on the cover of Time magazine as Man of the Year. He was gone in 1934. So the president gets to make these choices.
Hey, and we could go back to, who was it, McNamara?
Yeah, McNamara, a huge corporate CEO, from the auto industry, comes and works at the Pentagon and tries to run the Vietnam War, not very well. So, yeah, this stuff has happened before. In my book, in The Power and the Money, I talk about Jack Welch, who knew 10 different presidents. So one of the interesting things about Power and the Money is these are all CEOs who dealt with multiple presidents. Jack Welch knew 10 different presidents, and many of them asked him to join their administrations, have him come in as a cabinet secretary. And he always said no, because he knew, first of all, if you're a cabinet secretary, you're subordinate to the president. The president's always above you. And these CEOs are used to being on top. And then the second thing is his method was he would fire the lowest performing workers at GE every year. You can't necessarily do that in the federal government.
I'm just thinking that's kind of what we're going through now. I mean, I call this life imitating office space, where what have you done? What do you do here? And that's a legitimate question, especially in the government. It should be asked repeatedly, because these agencies, these commissions, they've hung on, bureaus, whatever, hung on for decades, long since outliving their mission.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with that, but it's not clear that whatever firings are happening are actually going to be permanent. There's some people resign, and if you resign, then that's that. But a lot of these firings are going to be tested in court. A lot of these people have civil service protection, so it's just not clear to me that the 2+ million person federal workforce is going to be significantly smaller if we talk a year from now.
Yeah, well, the other thing is the moral aspect of, or the emotional warfare. It's a big psyop on these people, and how many of them can take it and finally just throw up their arms and leave? And those might not be the people that you really want to get rid of in the first place, right?
Yeah. Look, I'm sorry if it's offensive to people or hurtful to people to be asked what they do, but you got to do that in the private sector all the time. I mean, if you're in the private sector, you have these quarterly reports where you ask what your goals were and whether you accomplished them and whether you're doing well or not. I mean, when I've had jobs like that, I hate filling them out, but it's part of the job. You get paid. It's called work because they pay you to do something that you wouldn't do ordinarily. That's why it's work. And so
that's why if you actually love what you're doing, and you do it if you weren't paid, that's a passion, but could also be.
Well, that's why I do what I do. That's why I write my books, and I do give lectures, do think tank stuff. I do leadership training based on my knowledge of the presidency. So I do things that I like to do because I don't like having a boss telling me what to do.
Yeah, and I should remind you out there, the book is The Power and the Money, the epic clashes between commanders-in-chief and titans of industry. And it's gotten all sorts of awards and accolades. It came out in the summer, but it's probably more applicable now than ever with the current administration. So getting back to what you said there, Tevi, like accountability, it's not so bad. My concept for trimming the federal workforce was this: you wait for a day when it snows in DC, and DC gets an inch of snow, it's shut down instantaneously, and then they put out the call for only essential workers to come to the office. And then once you find out who all those essential workers are, you fire all the other ones, because if they're not essential, what do you need them for? Right?
That's a good point. I've always wondered about that. If these people are essential, what about everybody else? If they're not essential, why am I paying my tax dollars to support them? It's a great question.
Yeah, so that's how we get rid of non-essential workers, right? And even if you weren't essential, but you made it to the office with an inch of snow in DC, you deserve to keep your job.
It definitely shows a willingness to overcome challenges.
Hey, so, part of the way organizations change over time, or dramatically over time, is by breaking the paradigm, by really changing the way you think about work, about what the government's purpose is. So we've been in this 80-year kind of spiral. Actually, believe it or not, it's 90 years now since the New Deal, 1934, right? And we're starting to really redefine government. What is its purpose? Do you create a new agency for every new problem, or do you let the market work its way out, or do you find other ways to deal with it?
Yeah. Do you remember Tim Pawlenty? He ran for president briefly back in 2012. He had this thing called the Google test. He said, before we come up with a government doing some new thing, why don't we Google it and see if somebody's already doing it in the private sector? And if they are, don't create a new government entity to do it, because it's already being done.
And now with AI, we could just ask it for the solution, and it would probably figure it out better than any bureaucrat in the ivory tower, right?
Yeah, and look, we've got over 100 transfer programs that transfer billions of dollars from one group to another. Do we really need 100? Maybe we have some kind of guaranteed annual income, a negative income tax or something. We say, okay, we're just going to give you a check. You get a certain level of money, but you don't have to have 100 different programs, all administered by bureaucrats, all who take a cut. All of these are inefficient. A lot of them have problematic incentives. So, yeah, there is just too much of this in the federal government, and we do need to pare it down.
Yeah, I love the concept of that, and really, how many we don't, that also the idea of that email with the 5 things. What 5 things you did last week? It's also like, do you exist? Right? Musk called it a pulse check, right? Do you exist? Do you come into the office, or are you a fictitious person or a dead person? And we just keep doing the transfers into your account.
When I was at the Department of Labor, there was this one division and they were the ones that were supposed to be the watchdogs over the labor unions. They would just go to the bar every afternoon. You could find these guys drinking away, starting at noon, because they weren't going to watchdog over the unions. They didn't have any interest in doing that.
So it's probably better that those guys do work from home, because then when they get drunk, they won't be driving and presenting a hazard to the entire, driving public.
Right. This is back in the days when people actually showed up.
Yeah. Well, Woody Allen's old saying's got to be updated now, because he used to say 80% of life is showing up, but now it's maybe 80% of life is showing up on a Zoom call.
Yeah. Right. And then, what are they doing on the Zoom calls? You saw Jamie Dimon's leaked transcript about how he's ripping on people going on Zooms and how they roll their eyes and make snide comments, but they're actually doing work. So, yeah, Zoom is not a real substitute, even though I'm enjoying this interview on Zoom. And we could have done it otherwise in the olden days.
For what we do as quote unquote content creators.
Right.
It's a boom for us.
Yeah,
but the Zoom is the product there. The Zoom call is the product. But, I do see uses for it. There's a lot of companies that's expanded their capabilities because they're global, and these people would never see each other except at company get-togethers, if then. So, yeah, technology is great, but technology in itself is not the solution. It's only a tool as part of a solution, which always has to be human-induced. AI. So this is the biggest trend now, in my opinion, in the world. if you haven't used it, which supposedly 85% of the population has not even checked out Chat GPT or Grok or Gemini or any of the others out there. From your standpoint, as the way the government functions, the way society functions, what's your take on it?
I think it has amazing possibilities. I mean, you look at the FDA, for example. We are on the cusp of some kind of biomedical revolution. We've got all these advances. And what's the number one thing slowing it down is the FDA review process. And they always say, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough time, we can't review all the documents. Well, why don't you have AI review the documents? And they could look for the anomalies that better than a human can. They can find if there are potential adverse risks in a new product. And they look at all the submissions, which, sometimes these documents are in the hundreds of thousands of pages. They can look through it in the blink of an eye, and maybe we can move the whole FDA approval process faster. So I see tons of possibilities for AI.
And not to mention what's happening with Doge, the ability to scan through every single line item in the U.S. budget and come up with waste, inefficiency, or
look at AID. What's with these transgender comic books and the DEI operas? I don't understand, why does it help us if we go to a country and try and force DEI down the throats of this other country? They're gonna like us less. They're not gonna appreciate it. I get it. If USAID is all about providing food and medicine, that's great, but that's not what they're doing. They're providing this kind of ideological indoctrination that we get on our college campuses. I don't want it on college campus, and I don't want it when we're giving it to Mozambique either.
Yeah, well, I was trying to get tickets on Ticketmaster to the Trans Opera in Slovenia, but I couldn't. They were all sold out. So
you think the Slovenians really want to see a trans opera? Do you think it makes them feel better about the United States of America or worse?
This is like cultural rot, sickness, and it's an attack on these other cultures, which are more conservative than ours, and they don't appreciate it. And like you say, they hate us even more for meddling and indoctrinating.
Yeah.
So
I'd be aware of saying culture that are more conservative than ours, because, we're pretty conservative here in the Tri household, and I'm sure in your household as well. So,
yeah.
But let's not say that, the radicals own the culture.
Right. But we accept a lot more than what our parents or our grandparents would have, what they...
Yeah, perhaps to our detriment.
Yeah, that could well be the case, but whatever. It's all been normalized to some extent, at least our acceptance of it in others, maybe not in our household, but it's been an incredible eye-opener. Like you and I, like you worked in the government, you knew the waste, the corruption, the fraud, it was all there. You knew it, but you didn't know the specifics of it. You knew it from a macro level. Now you're getting to find out what it is from a micro level, and it is shocking.
Yeah, and I got to say, I'm a little embarrassed about this, but when I worked in the government, I would see these grants go to left-wing groups, and I say, well, can't we stop this? And everyone say, no, people have tried it before, it can't be done. Well, maybe it can be done. Maybe we should have tried harder when I was in the Bush years, because this stuff has been going on for a long time. It's just now with AI and with social media, we get to find out about it. Used to, you would have these media filters, wouldn't let the story get out, but now we can see the truth.
Hey, the most egregious thing I saw is the illegal invasion. USAID paid $6 billion that we know about. Mind you, a lot of it gets laundered. We don't know about it. $6 billion in the last 2 years to bring these illegals in and, give them luxury hotels and, debit cards and cars and houses and businesses. I mean, this is like insanity.
Yeah, all you had to do was say stop. And, I don't know if you know, but border apprehensions are way down because we said, no, it's no longer an open door. We're going to stop you. You can't come in this country legally. I love immigrants. I'm very pro-immigration, but pro-legal immigration. How do you think these people are waiting online for their visa feel when somebody just sneaks over the border and then it leads to Americans say, oh, we don't want immigrants. It's not that we don't want immigrants. We don't want illegal immigrants. We want legal immigration because it's the lifeblood of our economy. It brings in new ideas. 40% of the people in the pharmaceutical industry are immigrants. I think they're great, but those people came here legally.
I look at my top 10 friends. I live here in Florida, and at least 4 or 5 of them emigrated here legally. So to say
And they brought great energy and ideas and money to this country. And, that's what we're $35 trillion in debt. We can't just live off our pathetic birth rate, which is, we're not even replacing ourselves. We do need people to come here to pay taxes and to build a country and to be innovators, but we've got to do it legally.
Yeah, and we want to know something about them and know that they're not diseased. My ancestors came through Ellis Island. They were quarantined for a couple of weeks. They couldn't come into the country till we knew they were disease-free. And that's just one example. Hey, again, the book is The Power and the Money, the epic clashes between commanders in chief and titans of industry. And it's by Tevi Troy. Tevi, been a great guest. Really appreciate your coming here. You got a website we can follow your work at?
Yeah, you can go to tevitroy.org. You can buy The Power of the Money wherever fine books are sold. You could follow me at Tevi Troy on X or Twitter, whatever you prefer. And I just got to say, I love your shirt.
Thanks. Hey, well, we always like to say wherever fine books used to be sold, and Amazon and wherever fine books used to be sold, the link will be in the show notes, both to Tevi's website and to the book on Amazon. Hey, appreciate you coming on. We're definitely going to have you on again and can't wait for your next book.
Great. Thanks. I look forward to your review and the mention in the newsletter and all this great stuff.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.